Let's move now to our focus report, which takes us to Colombia this Friday. As the FARC guerrilla and the government prepare to finalise their revamped version of the peace deal, there are still voices speaking out against it, and none more high-profile than Senator and former President Alvaro Uribe. During his two mandates from 2002 to 2010, Uribe was the one who struck the hardest military blows against his rebel archenemies. A track record that includes many grey areas. In fact, his troubled past and the human rights violations that were committed during his time in office are attracting growing attention. However, witnesses are scarce, and the Colombian justice has not yet been able to prosecute him. We take a closer look now at this controversial figure of the Colombian political scene, with a report by Pascal Mariani and Juan Orozco, and with Sanam Chantier voicing.
After a 52-year-long internal conflict, Colombia has finally reached a peace deal, but one that's not to everyone's liking. In Congress, the process led by Juan Manuel Santos faces a strong adversary, the former president and current senator Alvaro Uribe, supporter of an all-out war against the guerrilla.
Mr. President, what's your take on this legislative period?
Struggle, struggle, and more struggle.
A central player in politics, the former leader is also one of the most controversial. Senator Iván Cepeda investigated his past.
There are many testimonies accusing not only his family and his close political circle, his business partners and his friends, but also former President Uribe himself, of several crimes.
Since the beginning of the 80s, Uribe is regularly accused of having ties with the paramilitaries and the mafia.
When he was the director of civil aviation, he was accused of granting flight licenses to the drug traffickers of Medellin and its region. This allowed the traffickers, namely the Medellin cartel, to expand.
The Accusations Commission of the Colombian Parliament, the only competent authority to prosecute a former president, has over 200 charges against Alvaro Uribe. So far, he remains untouchable, because in most of the cases connected to him, the witnesses are scarce. We meet one of them in a prison close to Bogota. This is where police officers are incarcerated. Accused of ordering an assassination in 1994, Major Meneses claims he is innocent. He accuses Santiago Uribe, the brother of the former president. The major was then chief of police in the municipality of Yarumal, the Uribe family's stronghold.
When I took office, the captain I was replacing told me, "Juan Carlos, we have a problem here, a rather complicated one. There is an armed group who does what we call social cleansing, and it is run by Santiago Uribe. As you know, Alvaro Uribe is a public figure and he supports his brother. So the police just turn a blind eye, and we let the group carry out their assassination."
Founded by rich farmers to hunt down civilians suspected of having ties with the guerrilla, the group was called the 12 Apostles. According to Major Meneses, the base of their operations was Santiago and Alvaro Uribe's farm.
Santiago Uribe would always carry a walkie-talkie and a machine gun. There were always people in uniforms around him. I once went to his farm, La Carolina, and he told me, "Look, these are the people I manage and who collaborate with you so that the region stays safe."
These death squads spread their tentacles across the country. They're responsible for tens of thousands of killings, with the complicity of parts of the army and the police.
Santiago Uribe and Alvaro Uribe have immense power in Colombia. In these cases, many witnesses have died. They were murdered, tortured, or they disappeared.
Since he turned himself in 2010, Major Meneses says he's escaped 2 attempted assassinations.
Here, I have my own food delivered to me, because I can be poisoned at any time. I know there are rewards of several billions of pesos for my assassination. My children can't even go to university anymore. They had to drop out because they were constantly followed by SUVs with tinted windows or motorcycles.
Santiago Uribe was arrested a year ago. The pre-trial investigation is underway. But for 20 years, the so-called 12 Apostles case remained buried in the archives.
All the evidence is here. There was a paramilitary group in La Carolina, in one of the farms of the wealthy landowners Alvaro and Santiago Uribe. It is estimated to have committed between 1,000 and 2,000 murders.
Carlos Toro defends two clients against the Uribes, and just like them, he's threatened with death.
When the justice system finally does something to judge the crimes attributed to Mr. Alvaro Uribe, there will be no evidence left, and no trial will be possible, for the simple reason that all the witnesses are dead.
From illegal wiretapping to the murder of civilians by the army, Colombia's strongman is also accused of multiple human rights violations during his presidential mandate.
The evidence is here, but the Colombian justice system is impotent against him. The only possible way forward would be for Alvaro Uribe to be accused, judged and convicted by the International Criminal Court.
A dozen former staff of Uribe's government are in jail for corruption or ties with the paramilitaries. Others have fled the country, but his many followers still march frequently in the streets of Bogotá. They believe that the serious accusations against the former president are the result of a political persecution.
In Colombia, the opposition is persecuted, an opposition that won 7 million votes in the last election. They want to put us in jail so that the crimes of the FARC remain unpunished.
For Uribe's supporters, the former leader saved the country from the rebel threat. They reject the peace process with the FARC guerrilla as a whole. In Colombia, the road to reconciliation continues to be paved with grave difficulty.
Well, for more on this, I'm joined in the studio by my guest, Latin America specialist Christophe Fontura. Hello, thank you for being with us.
Hello.
Now, is Uribe's opposition to any peace deal with the FARC merely an issue of conviction and political strategy, or is there perhaps an ulterior motive?
Well, I would say all these reasons together. Obviously, Mr. Uribe was the main leader during the campaign against this peace agreement. We have to underline that Colombia is a very conservative society, and he has been able to build this leadership for political reasons. I mean, he has been able to gather all the problem, the consultation of peoples against the government in general. The answer was not only an answer to the question, but it was an answer to the government, general economic and social politics too. So Uribe is a very good politician, and he did his job. Obviously, he has personal reasons too in this story, because especially with the special jurisdiction courts who will identify all the responsibles for crimes. And it's not only about guerrilla, but also with paramilitary people, with militias, etc. And probably this court will show that there are a lot of people who were the beneficiaries of all the problems in Colombia, including landowners and friends from Mr. Uribe, coming from the paramilitary groups, but also from some financial and landowner sectors who were directly involved in this black story of Colombia.
And we've heard of the difficulties of trying the Uribe brothers, but this isn't the only instance of a regime having allegedly used paramilitary forces to commit atrocities or further its own interests. Why can't the Colombian justice system take the necessary action?
Because we are in a special country where, there is a long story of dysfunctionment of the institutions. The state it's very difficult for the state to have a sort of normalization, and the peace process is also a way to build that. And the justice, the government, the police, the army are not working as we can imagine here in Europe, for example. I mean, there are a lot of problems of corruption, there are a lot of problems of dysfunctionment, etc. So that's why private interest, private influence within those sectors connected to paramilitary groups, narco traffics, etc., are influencing the normal processes for in this aspect for Mr. Santiago Uribe.
And obviously narcotics are the key to Colombia's troubles. Is the issue being efficiently addressed now beyond the peace deal?
Yes, I think that everything is open for the future with this peace deal. Uribe has a problem. First, he can't present himself for the next election. He called for civil resistance, but now he's not saying the same thing. Today he's saying that if an Uribe's candidate will win the next election, so they will discuss again this peace treaty, that they will try to change it. So that's where we are today, and it's probably the fact that Mr. Uribe has to deal with different sectors, including his old and traditional friends from Washington too, because it's not very clear what the international community and especially Mr. Trump wants for Colombia, and probably Mr. Uribe received also some friendship pressure in order to not create a situation uncontrollable. So that's where we are today, and but the process is not at the same time is not guarantees for the future, but it's not close.
Christophe Ventura, thank you very much for having spoken to us. Well,